Ackerman Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Ackerman's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at ackermanresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Greetings, Jim. Thanks for inviting me as a guest.
Rick, the stock market is up today in both Canada and the U.S. Is there any reason for this renewed optimism?
Well, it was just looking for something, anything to take off, and every big rally, of course, begins with short covering, and that's what's got this one going. In this case, I guess it's Trump saying, look, we're not going to keep everybody off the job and everything shut for the rest of time. America's ready to get back to work. So even though we can't be sure when it's going to be safe, Trump has at least turn the psychology around a little bit, like we're going to be stuck in our homes for the rest of our lives.
Of course, they put, $2 trillion in stimulus in? Did that do anything helpful?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where the bidding war is right now. I guess it was $1 trillion and then $2 trillion. I think Nancy's now, she's raised the ante to $2.5 trillion. I think it would, every penny of it, or I can understand supporting the unemployment office, the structure of the unemployment system, but the wholesale giveaway of 2,000 or 3,000 or whatever size checks to every household is going to be a complete waste. And to understand why, you just have to picture yourself, picture where are people going to spend that money. And I can't think of a worse way to artificially and temporarily stimulate the economy than everybody goes out there and buys a Cadillac Escalade or a new refrigerator or whatever. We need a much different kind of stimulus. And I've got I think a very good idea, at least relative to what they're putting out there. Be happy to talk about it.
Well, what is the idea?
Well, this came from one of my most very imaginative friend of mine. He's in the theater world. He's the founder of People's Light Theater, one of the most successful repertory theaters in America. And he is, to put it mildly, a man of the left, certainly a progressive. He describes himself as an anarchist, but he's a very intelligent one. And he's certainly no fan of Trump's, but he says if Trump ran with this, he would absolutely get reelected. And hear me out, because I think you'll agree. The idea is to create a civil conservation corps similar to what we had in the 30s, and we could also spin off something like the WPA. You'd have works progress, you'd have projects, and these wouldn't be just to keep people busy. We already know from the example of the many architectural wonders that came from the 30s that it can be very useful work. Good for all America. And the idea would be to mobilize the Army. The Army can build an encampment pretty much anywhere. If you told them to go into the middle of the Mojave Desert, they could do it. They could build a camp that would work for any projects that might be useful to that area of the country. So the Army builds the encampments, and then the volunteers come. Anybody, it could be you, me, anybody who wants to go to work and get paid for it. And the training would be on the same crash basis that got us very productively and successfully occupied before our entry into the Second World War. People who knew nothing were trained in a matter of weeks or months to be navigators, radio men, bombardiers. It's amazing how much you can train people to do things that are useful and productive. if you have a system to implement the knowledge. So I think it would be a big winner instead of taking $2 trillion and just shooting it down the hole with checks out to every household. We could start working on that infrastructure that Trump has made such a point of emphasis about during the campaign. You know, we've had a lot of going nowhere discussion about America needs to fix its infrastructure, roads, bridges, and everything else. And I think the Army is a place to start to get that effort going.
And of course, both Canada and the U.S. have a horrendous homeless problem. Why not start building homes for the homeless?
There's when you talk about $2 trillion or maybe $3 trillion to put into a project like that, there's no limit to what we could build. The homeless problem is such an immensity, but if you channel the money in some resourceful way, I think we could even make more than just a dent in that problem.
And of course, they'd be getting jobs out of it.
Yeah, they would. As I said, the first thing you want to do is test people when they show up at the camps, and if you don't have to quarantine them, you immediately put them into the training programs that would allow them to actually do road work, construction work. It could be social work. It could be anything, really, but it would be just a jump start to get things built.
And of course, we need more paramedics right now, so why not train them to be paramedics? Army medics and corpsmen for the Marines, they were trained in a relatively short period of time.
Well, exactly. And that would be, the Army proved how quickly you can gear up for war by giving people certain skills, and this would be, it would have a very different purpose. And I think that's why it'd be well worth our while to pursue it.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Copper had its best day ever, I think, gaining 14 cents at the time we're talking today. Was that surprised? Is this a sign that things are picking up, or was it just a good opportunity to buy something that was very cheap?
Well, anybody following my newsletter, especially in our trading room, was able to get in copper very near the low. The low was about, I think it was $1.97 a pound. And so I would have to say, having nailed the low, that the rally is very technical, meaning it was just ordained by some sort of mysterious cyclical force. But that said, I'm not a believer in inflation. I don't blame copper and gold for going just a little bit crazy on the inspiration that the Federal Reserve is going to backstop everybody. In other words, just come one, come all, get your dollars. And but it's interesting to me that the dollar did not get hit quite as badly as gold and copper have gone up. So the dollar has sort of taken a pretty heavy punch and more than survived. And I think that's because the main trend, or you could even see it as the main threat, is not from inflation but from deflation. So I hardly think we're going to inflate with $2 trillion. I can give you 10, 15, 20 other $1 trillion that would need to be thrown at the system to even begin to start a hyperinflation. You know, you could, for instance, talk about bailing out the Illinois pension system when it goes bankrupt, which it will, and attempting to inflate the pension systems of 26 other states that are just on the cusp of bankruptcy themselves in terms of their liabilities to public employees, retirees. So we're not going to have inflation, but I do see the rally in gold and copper as discounting the immediate shock here of a kind of open-ended stimulus.
What do you think's going to happen with gold? Is it going to hit 5,000, 10,000?
No, I've never been on board for that. I'm a gold bull, and I keep gold myself. I've given my sons gold coins to sock away, and I'm a believer that we should all have some gold in preparedness for things that we can't even imagine. But as far as gold, 5,000, let alone 50,000, the point I would make is you better be really a shrewd negotiator and quick on the draw if you're going to try to talk some farmer into selling you land for a handful of gold coins. But what I have said over the years is that whatever happens, that gold is going to hold its purchasing power relative to any other asset you could think of. So it's possible that gold could fall to 700, but in comparison to other investable classes of assets, that would be doing pretty well. So I like gold, and my immediate target for the June contract is, I believe it's 1850 something or other. If it gets past let me give you the exact numbers here, because that's the way I work. 1731 is going to be a crucial resistance basis the April COMEX contract, and if we see a decisive move above that, perhaps a 2-day close above it, you're going to see 1852 per ounce, and that's basis, again, the April COMEX contract. So how sure am I that it's going to get there, even though gold has sold off pretty hard today from an initial screaming, flaming rocket high of, it went to 1698, so call it 1700. I think even though it's pulled back quite a bit right now, currently trading 1657, it's going to at least 1731, and as I said, if it gets past that, we're going to see 1852. So I'm a bull, at least for the time being.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, what do you think is going to happen to the price of crude with both Saudi Arabia and the Russians refusing to tighten up the taps a bit to bring up the price?
Well, the U.S. is kind of in that debate, too, because we've got a lot of fracking resources that could make a difference. And I think ultimately, though, it's going to be a supply and demand thing. And it's inconceivable to me that the manufacturing apparatus of planet Earth is going to get ramped up in any quick way to stimulate crude oil prices. So we could see a retest down there at the $20 level, and I don't see any great strength in crude. Again, it's kind of responding to the shock stimulus announcement, and off a recent low, off the June crude contract, touched down 21.80, looks like 21.64, currently trading 26 and change. The recent high off that low was 29 and change, so I think $30 is kind of a practical limit for crude, but my technical tools say that a relapse to crude could take it down to 17 $17.03. That's basis the June NYMEX contract. So I think we're going to fall $9 from where we are right now, and I would say maybe 65% chance of that.
The world economy, of course, taking it on the chin. People wondering how long it'll take to come back. This virus is, of course, just starting to get its foothold in North America. We don't know what's going to happen to Africa, although they're not the biggest player on the planet, but still, it looks like this thing's going to be sloshing around for a while. How can we hold up, and will we hold up?
Well, let me give you just a benefit of the personal experience that I'm going through right now. I live in a very sequestered, it's a gated golf community in South Florida. And on the 8th of March, they sent out an email that said no more buffets, no more salad bar. It's going to be all food service will be by employees of this club. So 3 days later, they actually had a banquet where there was a buffet, and I was at that banquet because it was my neighborhood association. It wasn't the larger community, and I guess it was just too big an event to change the menu so that it wasn't buffet oriented, and so also they probably couldn't have found a staff to serve the food at tables. All right, so here we have this big event, 200 people, and I guess at that point we were aware of the changing protocols. Every day we were getting new restrictions, and in the case of this particular place, there was no golf, no driving range. They closed the main pool, no valet service, no anything. They were just trying to avoid having people come in contact with each other, and for a day or two, they left. They have 3 golf courses, and they left them open, but you were restricted to using a cart, just single person. You couldn't share a cart unless it was with your spouse. All right, so here we are, a couple of weeks later, no problem. We've had, I think, just a report of 2 people out of 1,600, I think, reporting positive. Their lab tests were positive. And so it tells me that if you follow the distancing guidelines, it's really possible to prevent the spread, because we had a couple of, as I mentioned, some very menacing vectors there that just haven't borne any, where the virus is concerned, bad metaphor here, but they haven't borne much fruit. So the containment, I think, could definitely work. One of the big wild cards is the spring break revelers. Here in South Florida, a lot of beaches closed right away. Fort Lauderdale did not really want to become the scene of a spring break orgy, so they reasonably closed the beach, and some of the others nearby, like Hollywood, Florida, Hallandale, they followed suit. My little beach here in Delray is not traditionally a collegiate haven at this time of year, and so they didn't close it, but all of the people shut out from beaches in other places in South Florida converged on Delray, and it's not so much that it's dangerous to be down on the beach. You sit down there in the sun with the waves breaking at your feet and all those negative ions in the air. You think, well, how could this possibly be dangerous? And even when the beach is relatively crowded, it's pretty easy to get 20 or 30 feet from anybody else if you really want to. So anyway, it's not the beaches that are dangerous, but right across the street from the beaches, you have my favorite little tiki bar and a couple restaurants and things like that. I didn't go to the bar the one day I was down on the beach, but a lot of people did. So you'd have to be crazy to get on an airplane with some of these spring break revelers returning to their villages like Chicago, L.A., and New York. You'd have to be nuts. But it's a very open question as to what they're all going to take home with them. And they all think of themselves as immortal, and I guess the joke is, well, you boomers can all die and everything will be just fine. But I think they're going to discover they have their own risk, really, and it will be a terrible thing if this country had endured the financial pain of this amazing lockdown that we've had, only to have the virus get cranked up for a second round because it's being spread by spring break revelers.
How would you sum up the overall picture right now? What should people be doing with their portfolios?
I still think there's a little bit of a play in bonds. I've got 0.70 forecast for the 30-year, 0.7%. So there's a good capital gain left in that as interest rates come down again. Bonds have been swinging so wildly, though, that I can understand anybody wanting to kind of stay out of it. You can use your own good sense, really, to see which companies will benefit if we remain somewhat sequestered for a while. The companies like Netflix, for one, or even Disney, that put out things on television. You can do them from the safety of your own home. You can enjoy whatever they're putting out, and I think it's probably a little bit late to jump on the toilet paper stocks, but even there, we could get a lot of precipitous movement in the stocks because all the stocks that have been in play simply on the assumption that we're going to be shut in, we're going to be self-quarantined for a while. Well, that assumption ebbs and flows, as you can see in the price action of the market today. So, but I wouldn't chase this inflation play with copper and gold. I did give you some targets for gold, and I think I'm very confident that they'll be reached, but beyond that, no guarantees.
Rick, thank you so much for being on the show.
Always a pleasure. I appreciate your inviting me on, Jim.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.